So there's a few last things that I want to do. So one thing that I want to do is I want to change some of the tones here for the skin. I'll make a new layer. I'm going to put it underneath our two slime layers that we made. And you could also name these too. That's good practice as well. So we could jump in and say base 1, base 2, base 3, slime 1, slime 2. We could call this UVs. Now for this other tones layer here, I just want to drop in some darker tones, and I'll really make this like low opacity, like 11%. Turn this higher up, and start dropping in some color. And you notice I'm still on my liquid brush, so you still do see some of that liquidness, right? But what we could do is then lower the opacity to the point where we just saw some different tones. So I like the way this looks now. One last thing that I want to do is I want to cut away from some of these layers, right? So mainly the surrounding edge of the UV, mainly the edge surrounding the UVs, right? Because I want to make this a nice clean layout. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my polygonal lasso tool and I'm going to hit Control plus to zoom in on this. And now this workflow, we're just going to click. We're leaving a little bit of space between where I'm clicking and the UV edges themselves, just so that when this texture wraps around our object, we don't accidentally take away part of our texture and we get one of those like black lines from our background and stuff. But we do want to clean this up so it looks professional. And so I'm just coming around here, clicking like this. Now I'm going to go select, inverse, and I'm going to hit delete. And then I'm going to go to each different layer and hit delete. So I was on one layer, now I'm on another layer, and that should be the only other layer that affected that. If you want to be sure, you could just go up to all the layers and do it, but this looks pretty good. Control minus. So now what are we going to do with this UV's upper layer here? Well, if we leave it as it is now, it's going to actually display these lines over our object. So if you just change the visibility of that, but leave the orientation of the UVs, that's going to be okay. Now I just want to add a new layer and drag it underneath. This is going to be my background. I'll make it black for this. Now I have a black background. I have my UV layout here. I'm going to hit Control S. Within images, actually, I'm just going to go to Documents. I'll just save this as zombie head. And sure, we can leave it as a Photoshop document. Actually, change this to PNG, and I'll show you why. So if we make it a PNG, we could actually use the 3D Paint tool to paint on textures as well, which I'll show you in a moment. So save that. Hit OK. Come back into Maya. Go to our Hypershade editor. Click on Blend. Click the checker box there. Click on File. Now click here. Go to Documents, Zombie Head. Okay, now go back to this here. Now you'll notice that our color information is now dictated by this texture here. Middle mouse button click and drag it onto the head. You'll notice that thanks to our UVing, we were able to accurately put these guts where the mouth would be. So now it looks like our zombie isn't starving. He actually went and got something to eat, so that's good. And now one thing we could do, we could turn down the specularity just a tad. Okay. Definitely save the project just in case. And so the next step, one thing I want to show you is the 3D Paint tool. So if I select this object, I'll hit Q just so that none of the tools are selected. I'll change from the modeling presets to the rendering presets. I'll go to texturing, 3D paint tool. Okay. You'll notice that this is a surface here I could paint on. I'll hold down the B key like I did with some of the UV tools, and I'll just maneuver, I'll increase the size of that paintbrush. For color here, I'm going to choose a green, and I'll make this a pretty light green. And you'll see that that doesn't always come across on our model. Just hit Control-Z twice to remove those. So twice for each stroke. And we have to see here, if we lower the opacity. Right now you'll see that comes across more as the green that we want. Right, so I'm not doing anything in particular here. I'm just showing you this tool, but we could use it to, let's say we decide we want to change the color. We don't have to necessarily hop back into Photoshop, modify that texture, and change the texture association on our blend. We could color this here with the 3D paint tool. And if you bring these models into something like Unity, all this information is stored on its own texture map in one of the Maya presets. So if you go into your default Maya folder and you hunt around, I believe it's under some sort of images portion, and you'll see 3D paint textures in a folder, and that'll be where your 3D paint texture is corresponded to a texture map. Bring that directly into Unity and apply it directly to a material, and you're good to go. Now, in order to take care of the seam condition, which we had in the back here, we couldn't really tell it because we used a consistent color, but just to be sure, we'll just paint some of this color back there. And now I'm starting to like the way that our zombie head is looking. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to our cursor there. I'm going to move this back into place. That looks about right. Next, in the next set of tutorials, I'm going to continue to show you how to texture this zombie character.